Thank you for saying this to the last part of the short course. After 18 years, you kind of get used to seeing a lot of things. But I'm trying, and I recognize a lot of faces, but I'm trying to get an idea of faces I don't know. So, how many are you are engineers by training? Okay. How many of you are TxDOT engineers? Okay. So, do you have any consultants? How many consultants do we have? Okay, good, good, good. Well, the reason I ask that is because it's nice to know the audience you're speaking to and who is here. Do we have a clicker? Or we're just going to do page up, page down? Page down, there we go. One of the things I was going to ask Carlos, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, is who won the Environmental Achievement Award? You knew this was coming probably this year. Was there an announcement for who won?
Oh, yes. Yeah. The winner was the DMW connector.
Oh, excellent. Good, 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 good. We don't congratulate folks enough for doing good work, and that's a great project. And I also want to commend Sandy, and the REF, the Regional Environmental Framework, is excellent, and we just saw evidence of that. So I'm going to try and give some accolades here. And one of the things I want to recognize is, it's hard to do the glasses and this. Which way should I do this? The Dallas District won a national award from Federal Highway Administration for Clyde Warren Park. Have any of you ever been to Clyde Warren Park? It is incredible, and it's a really neat thing. So kudos to the Dallas District. Also, since the topic is mitigation, I was going to look back in time and see other award-winning projects. And one of them was, I guess, last year, was it 2013? Do I have to know? That would be 2 years ago. Was the Cape Road Bridge in San Marcos, a mitigation type project. Anybody here from involved in that project? No? Hi, Edgar, I just saw you there. Last year was another mitigation type project, which was transparent noise walls along I-30 at Kessler Park, another good project, worthy of mention, an award-winning project. And then I love this one mainly because of the photographs. This would have been this is a runner-up last year. Has anybody done any muscle mitigation? any muscle mitigators out there? Have you gone swimming with the snorkel and the thing to look and see? Doesn't that look like fun, or no? No, maybe, yes. But it's a type of mitigation we all do. Let me get my other notes caught up here. But it is dedication, and just a little recognition for those folks who do a lot of mitigation type work. What I'm going to talk about today for the next few minutes is about 4 things. Most of you are very experienced in environmental issues, so we're not going to go into great depth. We're just going to touch the surface. But the common types of mitigation we want to track, the cost associated with mitigation, and mitigation tracking practices. Who's doing what other states are doing things. And then most importantly, is what I'd like to do is get some feedback from some of you for the current research we're conducting and on the issues associated with mitigation. So if you look at the big laws, let's just take the major ones. You do your scoping document, you're going to run across these 3 acts. You have the Section 404, the 4F stuff, Section 106, and Endangered Species Act. That accounts for 90%, 95% of all mitigation you'll ever do. Of that, the first one, the Clean Water Act, the Section 404, probably accounts for 85 to 90% of your mitigation and mitigation costs. Would everyone agree with that? Yeah? So that's the big. Let's take it the most important, biggest chunk first. So the mitigation approach, everybody should know it, right? Okay? It's avoid, minimize, repair, rehabilitate, reduce, and then the last thing you want to do is buy new, right? Or buy it again. When I was sitting in the right-of-way session yesterday, and I was looking at Edgar's utility conflict matrix, one of the things, and I co-chair that session every once in a while, is I noticed the approach to utility relocation or utility management is what's the first thing you want to do when you're designing? Avoid, It's almost the same process. If you're looking at mitigation, let's start thinking of it as one of the steps were how we got to avoid it, and the last cost we want to replace it and buy it again.
When you have the 4 feet spacing,
So first choice is avoid. So sometimes it might be cheaper to avoid a stream or a wetland than it is to mitigate against it. In the past, probably we spent more time just, the straight line, let's get over there, or maybe we don't need to bridge it, we can just mitigate. It's getting expensive to do that now. So there's 3 ways you're going to probably mitigate if it's a 404 is mitigation bank credits, in lieu fee, or permittee responsible mitigation, which is your last choice, correct? Yes? That's the last thing you want to do. We won't go into the weeds. I'm not a wetlands expert. Now, if you look at the project development process, this is a swim lane diagram that Edgar helped produce however many years ago it was, and with Cesar. And you see the swim lane for environmental process, you see the swim lane for right-of-way development, you see the swim lane for preliminary utility conflict resolution. And you notice they all kind of occur simultaneously and kind of occur and do the same things. And one of the things I was thinking about yesterday and shared it with Edgar was well, what if we kind of use the same conflict matrix when we're looking at utilities that we might do with mitigation? It won't always line up, but it certainly may. So we're going to be looking into that and see how, rather than reinventing the wheel, and how many design engineers do we have in the room? Just curious. Okay, good. Now, typically, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because it's supposed to be interactive. Design engineering goes, okay, what do I have to do for environmental? Okay, what do I have to do for right-of-way? Okay, what do I have to do to clear utilities? What do I have, we always talk about the environmental business, breaking down the walls and the stovepipe. Well, why don't we start thinking these things as all one system? And I know we do in one part, but maybe not in practice so much. So what do we do as far as right-of-way? This is a project from about 2 to 3 years ago. We looked at the right-of-way ROIS, right-of-way information system, and tried to pull out what we'd spent or what TxDOT had spent on mitigation costs. Now the current process, this is an oversimplification, but excuse me while I get a drink of water. So at the district, they know that you need to do some mitigation. They coordinate with the Corps.
and this is the depth from.
District sends the information down to division. Division goes, environmental division says, yes, that's a good idea. Then environmental division coordinates with right-of-way division. And then it's okay, we're going to pay for this mitigation. And then got to check the mitigation's done. So let's see, and that's a really oversimplification, but not too much. So about 2 years ago, I said, okay, how much information we could extract from the right-of-way information system and how much is being spent or how many checks are being cut. And you can see about 2 years ago, in 2012, it kind of jumped up there. I mean, you're chugging along at mitigation costs, and then they go up. Now let's look at how many parcels are required, because if you buy some property, it's going to be in ROIS, correct? Usually, yes? Okay. And you can see once again that curve is going, or that the costs are going up. Now, part of that can be due to a couple of things. What's one of them? More. There's just more building, more construction, more stuff. But also, you're probably encountering more. It's more. Yes, that's part of it. And it costs more. But that's the number of parcels. So that would be a reflection of you're needing to acquire more. This one is the annual parcel by expense category. Now you'll notice in about right after 2009, you see that blue bar start.
Completely washed out.
This is a result of being able to do in lieu fee, okay? But you can also see the cost going up. Let me catch up over here. Are you fascinated yet? Is this just the edge of your seats?
What's the cost unit?
Those are dollars. So that top bar would be like 16 million. I think that's right. I will double check here. I believe that's correct. I can get you the exact zone. So the project that data came from is we're continuing. We look at that information. So what we're trying to do now is assess the mitigation cost tracking to help us estimate. So we don't like project surprises, correct? And one of the project surprises might be, oh my gosh, we got to relocate utilities. That's going to be expensive. So there are processes and checks to make sure we avoid that or at least plan for that. Sometimes it's environmental. Now, some things you can't know, but some things you can kind of guess, you can hunch. You know you're going to have to do it. So maybe in design phase, if the cost of just mitigating against stream was cheaper than bridging it, you would have just done it. But it is not necessarily intuitive because you don't always know what it's going to cost. So one of the things we had heard is, boy, it'd be nice to be able to get a cost estimating guide. I mean, when you do your project cost estimate, there's a cost estimating manual and a guide. It's done by, but I don't know if there's a chapter in there on mitigation costs. And sometimes mitigation costs kind of blow up a project. Not blow it up, but they do elevate some things, and it may become unforeseen. And then knowing how is that mitigation going to be paid for? There's no one, and I'll ask this, is there more than one way to pay for mitigation on a project? And can you tell me, did it come out of the construction cost? Did it come out of this fund or that fund? I mean, I know if it's right of way and they bought a parcel, I can find it in ROAS. I'm asking the question. Are there any, I'll ask some more, but where else do I fund mitigation costs?
Project partner.
I'm sorry?
Project partner.
Project partner, there you go. The point being is it's tough to find all those things to get a handle on what we're spending. Now, it may not be much. I mean, if your total cost of a percent of a project of mitigation is, less than 1%,
Well,
maybe it's not worth pursuing to find out. But if you look nationally, it can be anywhere from just a couple percent up to 5, 10. And when you start getting with the 5, 10% of a project cost, hitting mitigation, it's worth looking at to try and minimize that. So what we're going to do is try and find out, assess, and identify those things to improve the cost tracking part. Well, the first thing you do when you do a research project like that is you go, says, what is everybody else doing? So we did go look at other states. Arizona, California, Colorado, Florida, and you see the rest. The long story short, most of the states do have some sort of mitigation tracking process. They track their commitments using EPICs, like Texas uses EPICs or something similar. But when they're running on cost data. How much did they spend? Well, it's kind of this, kind of that. It's not very precise. Not if you were to do materials, let's say, or another kind of aspect or a certain component of project delivery. So what we're going to try and do now, part of this project, is look at the various information systems within TxDOT and districts as well, not just the divisions, but in districts as well, and try to get an idea of how to do this, how to take this elephant one bite at a time. What's there, what can we, on the low-hanging fruit part. And we started with going, okay, where is everything? What do we need to look at? And I know this is a busy diagram. And we say, well, let's look at the big rocks first. Pontex, which is the bridge, right, system. We might be able to get some cost data and information data there. ROAS, we know that's going to be a big one because of, we know if you buy a parcel, it's there. DCIS has cost data and construction data. ECOS has lots of information. Probably doesn't have a whole lot of cost data associated with it. But we're going to look at all these things, and then district processes. Districts do keep track of mitigation, but they do it kind of differently, whether it be through EPICs or the famous Dan spreadsheet. Dan has a nice spreadsheet he keeps track of his stuff on. And Austin has something they call Black Book, I believe. But we're going to try and look, maybe there's one good way to do this. So this is where I'm going to ask for your help. Like I said, I just described some of the things. Are there any big rocks I might be missing there? I also have FIMs because sometimes you have to go to pay items to get what it was paid for to make sure, but that's not always easy either. And then I put a note down here for in the bottom right, NRM. I believe it was Susan was starting some kind of tracking of a database to know what's going in. That may be one. And then Ribbits, there's no cost data in Ribbits. But we're just looking at this soup and seeing what makes sense to pursue. I'll go ahead and skip that one. So with that, this is the interactive part of the show. I'll ask you the questions. So you can study some of these questions. You can ask me a question. I will turn it around back into a question back to you. See how that works? Okay. So when it comes to mitigation tracking, big picture, okay? If you could wave your magic wand, what are the things that you would like to know? What are the big issues? It's perfect, right? We got everything under control.
It'd be nice to know if we actually did it.
That's another good one. The epics is probably the best way to do that. Yeah. A lot of it from what we've seen, it's it confirmed in the field, and that's one. We plan on doing this. It goes into the plan. Does it get done? I know there are incidences where it hasn't happened. I always start on the positive, but yes, it'd be nice if it was actually completed. So I'm gonna make a note. Okay, does it get done? I mean, as practice leaders, what answers besides that one would you like to know? Does it get done? If you had something, say, look at all we did.
How do you find the opportunity that meets your need? It's a challenge.
Meet the need. We don't want to do too much mitigation. We want to do enough. Does that mean the right amount of mitigation for the right?
If you're mitigating for a certain type of wetland, or if you're mitigating for a certain type of habitat, or a certain
Please,
cultural
I'm not-
resource, then you got to find something that would meet the regulatory agencies'
Mhm.
need for something of an in-kind type of replacement.
Okay. One of the things that about mitigation that's great with the regional environmental framework is instead of this postage stamp mitigation, it's really difficult with some things to do that. I mean, to avoid doing postage stamp mitigation and do a regional approach. But the work that NCT COG, HGAC, Austin area does, and the coordination allows maybe doing some of this mitigation so it's just not a tree here, a stream here, and so on. So what other questions might you have? Are there resources? If you could wave a magic wand, what would you like? A spreadsheet that says a field within DCIS or ROAS?
It'd be nice to have what mitigation could be considered, the pros and cons of it, and the cost of it, a range of cost.
That is one of the things we're trying to determine is the range of cost. Now you can go out to mitigation banks and say that how much is it this month or how much is it that, but over time, and I believe in there is still the cost memo where you need to do best value, as it were, and go to several banks. There's a fascinating report, and I'm going to just jump down here. Are y'all familiar with any of these documents? This is out of HGAC. I should have brought one in. What they did in that middle document, and actually the one to the right, that white paper, and I'm sure they're available at HGAC, and you can contact me and get you one, is they went and they took their MTP, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, okay? And said, okay, if we build our MTP, how much mitigation are we going to need to do as far as wetlands and streams? I think they used the other ones, but they focused on wetlands and streams. They used their GIS, they mapped everything out. They are woefully short if they do a build out of what their plan is of being able to mitigate, because they know they're going to have to do it. So they're faced with, we need more banks. Now, if you have something is it always easy to go find a credit or a bank? No. When something is scarce, that resource, what does the price of that do? Usually it goes up. So unless somebody starts opening banks, that curve we see, that might be even getting steeper. It might be costing more. Now, a bunch of banks and people get into the business and say, wow, there's money and resources in that. You might see that level off. But there's a shortage of ways to mitigate. We have very limited options. This is just a quick flash of the folks involved. On the TxDOT side, we have Mark Fisher, Andy Blair, Dan, Susan, and Darren Jensen. And then helping me is Edgar, Christy, Matt, and Curtis. That's my contact information. That's really all I had. I'd like to open up to questions, but please, you can also ask questions. Anybody? Anything?
One thing we always have trouble with, if we do a design change to avoid something, say we're gonna span a bridge versus, do disturbances in a wetland, if we can span that, there's really no way to track that. And to say, okay, because it's just absorbed in the construction cost estimate there. And there's really no way, like I say, there's no way to track that to take credit for not impacting something. And so anyway, that's just a thought.
No, great, excellent point, excellent point. And one of the things we might try to do is look at it like you would another aspect of the design process, whether it be utility or right of way. So it's not always just, oh, that environmental stuff. Oh, that environmental stuff.
It would be tracking the avoidance.
Right.
And we do a lot of avoidance all the time on projects, but.
You don't get no attaboys.
It sometimes is captured in the environmental document, but a lot of times it's not. It gets lost.
All right, thank you.